I now have the pleasure of recognizing the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Walden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I thank the witness for being here. I want to get some clarification here. So BARDA's job is to do the vaccines, right?
That is one of BARDA's roles, yes, to support industry to make the vaccines.
Okay. Is it BARDA's responsibility to direct the personal protective equipment acquisition distribution, the PPE? Is that part of your responsibility at BARDA?
BARDA plays a role in pandemic preparedness for our nation, and we prepare and align and exercise with our other federal agencies. We also are familiar with the critical gaps in the supply chain.
Okay.
So while BARDA isn't responsible for procuring those items for the Strategic National Stockpile, we are aware of those shortages and those needs. What I was doing in my capacity as BARDA director was raising those concerns and needs with the appropriate group within ASPR, the Strategic National Stockpile.
But ASPR basically has the responsibility to go do that, right? That's not your direct responsibility. You're obviously in this discussion, but that's not how it's right in BARDA, correct?
It's my responsibility to raise a significant concern about a limited supply or a shortage that I think will affect the lives of Americans.
Did you raise that concern with people up here on Capitol Hill? And if so, who and when?
I raised that concern with my leadership, sir. I raised it with the appropriate folks in the Strategic National Stockpile and our Critical Infrastructure Protection Program.
Not up here?
My role was to raise it to my supervisor, Dr. Cadlick. I also did raise that concern, though, in the White House with Mr. Navarro.
Yeah, I'm interested because we're passing these bills. In the future, I hope you would, or anybody out there listening in these agencies, if you're spotting something that's not working right, we need to know. Yes. On the first case of SARS-CoV-2 in the U.S., it was identified, I believe, in January 22nd in Washington State. CDC put the positive specimen in culture that day, correct?
I believe so. I think it's January 20th.
Okay. It's my understanding the samples from the virus were made available to the U.S. government and that the CDC expanded the virus stocks between January 29th and February 3rd and shared the BEI on February 4th to enable broad sharing. Now, according to your complaint, after virus samples were available to the U.S. government from the Washington State case, and potentially even after the CDC's effort to grow the virus and then share with the BEI biorepository, you were still seeking to obtain a sample of the virus, correct?
That's true, sir, but we need more than one virus.
Right, I'm going to get to that. Why were the strains not available within the U.S. government, not available to you? Were they available to you?
Sir, I was asking for viruses in January because we wanted to make sure that we had a head start on developing the vaccine.
Yeah, no, I get that.
When they became available in February, I believe it's February 6th, through the BEI resources, right. Then those were distributed to laboratories.
Did you ask for the virus sample from Washington State that was part of that? You did?
BARDA did. We asked to make sure we had access to those viruses, and they were distributed to the right laboratories and the right companies.
And where did you ultimately get the virus that you distributed sample?
Some of those viruses came from the BEI resources at NIH, and some of those viruses came from laboratories that received the initial seed from CDC.
Okay, that's helpful to know. In some conversations I've been a part of with some at NIH, they indicated that the real key here was to get the DNA sequence, which China did eventually put up, I believe, at the end of December, early January. And that in terms of going after the vaccine, it was that sequencing that really mattered most to get started on vaccine development. And there are other scientists who are very distinguished who believe that the delay in getting the virus sample actually didn't set them back. Is that an accurate assessment, or do you just have a disagreement in that view? And I know scientists disagree, so do we up here. But I'm kind of hearing that having the sequencing really mattered most, and getting the virus important, but did not set them back in proceeding to get the vaccine and vaccine development underway.
So China posted the first sequence on January 11th, I believe, and made it available January 10th or January 11th. It's important to understand that the sequence is available, when a sequence is available, some companies with some technologies can get started with that sequence information.
And
you still are vulnerable because you have another country in their laboratories and post it on the internet or a database of their sequence. So there could still be challenges, especially for national security, about the integrity of that sequence.
Yeah, before my time runs out, it's run out. I was just going to ask, did they begin efforts at that time once they got the sequence?
The NIH began efforts on a synthetic messenger RNA vaccine candidate. However, without the viruses, you really cannot tell if the neutralizing antibodies elicited by that, or your diagnostics, or your therapeutics can actually work. You can try to synthesize a virus with a sequence, but it's never going to be representative of the actual virus. And we're spending billions of dollars on drugs, vaccines, and diagnostics. We want to have the most credible information possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The gentleman